Ex accused me of cheating and claimed to be pregnant to trap me. Turns out she was the one cheating and the baby wasn't mine. I'm a 28-year-old guy, and lately, life has been throwing some intense drama my way. My ex-girlfriend, Sarah, let's call her that, who's 26, and I had a pretty rough breakup about 2 to 3 months ago. We dated for 2 years, but the last bit was especially bumpy. Now, out of the blue, she drops a huge bombshell on me, and I have no idea what to do. Let me give you some backstory. Sarah and I met at a party through some mutual friends. We clicked instantly, and the first year of our relationship was like something out of a romantic comedy. We shared similar interests, loved spending time together, and even talked about our future. I'm a software engineer and she's a graphic designer, so both of our jobs are pretty demanding. But back then, we always made time for each other. We'd go on spontaneous weekend getaways, try out new restaurants, and spend lazy Sundays binge-watching TV shows. We even introduced each other to our families, and everyone seemed to be on board. My parents adored her, and her parents liked me too. However, as time went on, cracks began to show. It started small. Sarah would comment on how much time I spent working or how close I was with my female friends. I brushed it off as typical relationship stuff, but things escalated quickly. Sarah became increasingly jealous and possessive. She'd get upset if I hung out with my female friends, even in group settings. She started checking my phone when I wasn't around and questioning every text or call I got. I tried to reassure her, but nothing worked. One night, I was out for dinner with my best friend Mike and his girlfriend. Sarah was supposed to join us, but canceled last minute due to work. Later, she called me in tears, accusing me of lying about who I was with because she saw a Snapchat story from a mutual friend at the same restaurant. It took hours to convince her I wasn't cheating. Things got worse when I started a big project at work. I was working late often, and my team included a few women. Sarah couldn't handle it. She called me multiple times during the day, showed up at my office unannounced, and even followed me, trying to catch me in the act. I tried everything. Offered to let her meet my coworkers, shared my location. I even considered quitting the project. But nothing was enough. The constant accusations and lack of trust were wearing me down. The final straw was when she accused me of cheating with a coworker, Emily. Emily and I had been working closely on a project, often staying late. Sarah saw some work-related texts between us and lost it. She showed up at my office one evening, screaming and crying, accusing Emily of trying to steal me away. She called Emily horrible names and even threw a potted plant at me, thankfully missing. Security had to escort her out. I was mortified, and Emily was understandably shaken. I had to explain the situation to my boss the next day, who was understanding but firm that this couldn't happen again. Things were awkward at work after that. After that incident, I knew I couldn't stay in the relationship. I took a day off work and went to Sarah's apartment to break things off. I explained that her lack of trust and constant accusations were too much. Her behavior was affecting not just our relationship but my work and other friendships too. She didn't take it well. There was a lot of yelling, crying, and name-calling. She accused me of never loving her, of using her, of cheating on her the whole time we were together. She even threw some of my stuff out the window. As I was leaving, she threatened to ruin my life for breaking her heart. I didn't think much of it at the time, figuring it was just heat-of-the-moment stuff. I was just relieved to be out of the relationship. For the next few weeks, Sarah kept trying to contact me. She'd call, text, and even show up at places she knew I frequented. Her messages ranged from begging for another chance to threatening to tell everyone I knew what a cheating scumbag I was. I blocked her number and on all social media. Eventually, she seemed to get the message and backed off. I spent the next couple of weeks trying to get my life back on track. I threw myself into work, started going to the gym more, and reconnected with friends I'd neglected during my relationship with Sarah. Things were finally starting to feel normal again. That brings us to last week. It was a Friday night, and I was home enjoying a quiet evening. I'd ordered pizza, cracked open a beer, and was settling in to watch a movie when there was a knock on my door. I wasn't expecting anyone, so I was a bit confused. I opened the door, and there stood Sarah. She looked pale and like she hadn't been sleeping well. Before I could say anything, she blurted out, "I'm pregnant, and it's yours." I was stunned. My first reaction was disbelief because we'd always been careful. Given how our relationship ended, I couldn't help but wonder if this was some trick to get me back. I asked her how far along she was, and she said about 2 months. My mind was racing. 2 months ago, we were still together, but things were already bad. I tried to remember the last time we'd been intimate, but everything from that period was a blur of arguments and tension. I invited her in, more out of shock than anything else. We sat in my living room and I asked her how she found out and when she took the test. She said she'd missed her period, took a home test, and then went to a doctor to confirm it. I told her I needed some time to process this. I offered her a glass of water and went to the kitchen to gather my thoughts. When I came back, I found her going through my phone, which I'd left on the coffee table. "What the hell are you doing?" "So," I yelled. I really yelled, and she jumped, dropping my phone in the process. "I was just checking the time," she protested. "No, you were snooping just like always," I shot back. I was beyond fed up. I told her straight up, "I need proof before I can even start processing this." I asked for a paternity test, and man, did that set her off. She got really upset, accusing me of not trusting her. How ironic, considering our past. She insisted I should just believe her after everything we've been through. "You should know I wouldn't lie about this," she said with tears in her eyes. But all I could think about were all the times she accused me of lying and cheating when I did nothing wrong. I just couldn't take her word for it without concrete evidence. I explained that given our messy breakup and her past behavior, trusting her wasn't an option for me. I said I'd be open to discussing things further if she could provide medical proof of the pregnancy and agree to a paternity test. Sarah exploded. She called me every name in the book and said I was a coward for not stepping up. She even threatened to tell all our mutual friends and my family that I was abandoning her and my supposed child. Then she slammed the door and stormed off. Since then, I've been a mess. I can't focus at work. I'm not sleeping well. And I feel like I'm constantly on edge. Part of me wonders if I'm being too harsh. What if she really is pregnant? But another part of me can't shake the feeling that this might be a manipulation tactic. I've spent hours online researching false pregnancy claims and paternity rights. I've thought about reaching out to Sarah, but every time I think about it, I remember how toxic our relationship had become and how much happier I've been since the breakup. I haven't told anyone about this yet, not my family, not even my best friend Mike. I'm torn about what to do. Am I the bad guy for not believing her and insisting on proof? Should I have handled this differently? I keep replaying the conversation in my head, wondering if I missed something. She did look different, tired and stressed, but couldn't that be from the drama of our breakup? And why wait 2 months to tell me if she really is pregnant? Shouldn't she have known sooner? The threat of her telling everyone is weighing on me too. My parents would be devastated if they thought I'd abandon a pregnant girlfriend. And my friends? I can only imagine what they'd think. I've always prided myself on being a stand-up guy, and the thought of everyone believing I'm some deadbeat dad-to-be is killing me. But at the same time, I can't just accept this without question. Sarah's past behavior makes it impossible for me to trust her word alone. Bringing a child into the world is a huge responsibility, and I'm not sure either of us is ready for that, especially given our current relationship status. I've thought about reaching out to our mutual friends to see if they know anything, but I'm worried about starting the rumor mill before I even know what's really going on. What if Sarah hasn't told anyone else yet? I don't want to be the one to spread this information if it turns out to be false. There's also a small part of me that's terrified of the possibility it might be true. I'm not ready to be a father. Sarah and I talked about kids in the abstract, someday in the future, but never as an immediate reality. The thought of being tied to Sarah for the rest of my life, given how toxic our relationship had become, is overwhelming. I've even considered the possibility that the child might not be mine, especially given how accusatory she was about my fidelity. Could she have been projecting? Could there have been someone else? It's a horrible thought, but I can't help but consider every possibility. The more I think about it, the more confused and frustrated I become. I feel like I'm being forced into a corner with no good options. If I reach out to Sarah to get more information, am I opening myself up to more manipulation? If I ignore her, am I potentially abandoning my child? I know I need to do something, but I'm paralyzed by indecision. Every option seems fraught with potential pitfalls. I keep hoping that maybe she'll reach out again with more information or agree to my request for proof, but so far, there's been nothing but silence. Part of me wonders if I should just bite the bullet and agree to whatever Sarah wants, just to keep the peace. But I know that's not the right thing to do. If there really is a child involved, they deserve parents who are sure and committed, not someone who's just going along with it to avoid conflict. I've even considered seeking legal advice, but that feels like such a drastic step. What if this all turns out to be a misunderstanding or a false alarm? Would I be overreacting by getting lawyers involved at this stage? The whole situation has made me reevaluate our entire relationship. Were there signs I missed? Red flags I ignored? I thought I was being a good boyfriend by trying to reassure her and prove my faithfulness. But did I just enable her behavior? Should I have ended things sooner? It's been a week since Sarah showed up at my door, and I feel no closer to a resolution. Every day that passes feels like a ticking clock. If she really is pregnant, decisions will need to be made soon. But how can I make any decisions when I'm not even sure of the basic facts? I keep asking myself, am I the asshole for insisting on proof? Should I have been more sympathetic, more trusting, or am I right to be cautious given our history? I honestly don't know anymore. So here I am, turning to the internet for advice. I know it's a complex situation, and maybe I'm not giving you all the details you need to make a judgment, but I'm at my wit's end here. I need some outside perspective. Am I the asshole for not believing my ex-girlfriend and insisting on proof of her pregnancy? Or am I justified in my caution given our history? What would you do in my situation? Update 1. Hey everyone, it's been about 3 weeks since my original post and a lot has happened. I wanted to give you all an update on the situation with Sarah and her pregnancy claim. First off, I want to thank everyone who commented on my original post. Your advice and perspectives really helped me gain some clarity on the situation. Many of you suggested that I should stand my ground and insist on proof, while others pointed out that I needed to be prepared for the possibility. After a few days of not hearing anything from Sarah following our argument, she finally texted me. She apologized for her outburst and confirmed she was pregnant. She acknowledged why I might have doubts and offered to provide medical proof and even take a paternity test once it was safe. I felt a bit relieved that she seemed to be approaching things more rationally, but I was still cautious. We decided to meet up at a local coffee shop to discuss everything. I suggested a public place to avoid any potential drama and to keep things civil. When Sarah arrived, she looked different, much calmer and more collected than when she had shown up at my door. She handed me an envelope with ultrasound images and a doctor's report confirming her pregnancy. According to the documents, she was about 10 weeks along, which matched the timeline she had given me earlier. Seeing those ultrasound images, a mix of emotions hit me hard. This was really happening, or at least it seemed to be. We ended up talking for hours. Sarah explained that she found out about the pregnancy just a week before showing up at my place. She said she was scared and didn't know how to break the news to me, especially given how things had ended between us. She admitted that showing up unannounced and making demands was wrong, and apologized for it. I tried to keep an open mind as I explained my perspective, how her past behavior had made it hard for me to trust her, and how shocked and unprepared I was when she dropped this bombshell on me. We discussed our options. Sarah wanted to keep the baby, but understood if I wasn't ready to be a father. She assured me she wouldn't force me into anything but hoped I'd be involved in the child's life. I told her I needed time to process everything. We agreed to wait until it was safe to perform a non-invasive prenatal paternity test around the 12th week of pregnancy. After our meeting, I felt a bit better, but still overwhelmed. I decided it was time to tell my family and close friends. My parents were shocked. My mom was torn between excitement at the prospect of being a grandmother and concern about the circumstances, while my dad was more skeptical and reminded me of how volatile my relationship with Sarah had been. They supported my decision to get a paternity test and urged me to be cautious. My best friend Mike was next. He was surprised but supportive, offering to be there for me no matter what. He also suggested I talk to a lawyer to understand my rights and responsibilities, just in case. Over the next couple of weeks, Sarah and I kept in touch via text. She updated me on her doctor's appointments and how she was feeling. It was strange navigating this new dynamic with someone I had such a complicated history with. Then about a week ago, things took a drastic turn. Sarah called me in a panic, saying she had started bleeding and was on her way to the hospital. Without thinking, I rushed to meet her there. The next few hours were a blur of tests, worried waiting, and intense conversations with doctors. Finally, we got the news that Sarah had suffered a miscarriage. The doctor explained that it was unfortunately common in early pregnancies and that it wasn't anyone's fault. I was stunned. I hadn't even fully processed the idea of becoming a father, and now it was over. Sarah was devastated. Despite our past issues, seeing her in so much pain was heartbreaking. I stayed with her at the hospital until she was discharged, and on the drive back to her place, we barely spoke. Once we got to her apartment, Sarah broke down. She apologized again for how she had handled everything, admitting that her past behavior, the jealousy, the accusations, had been wrong. She said losing the baby made her realize how much she had messed things up between us. I listened, feeling a complex mix of emotions: sadness about the loss of a potential child, relief, and guilt. There was still a small voice in the back of my mind wondering if this whole thing had been real. I asked Sarah if she had told anyone else about the pregnancy. She said no, that she had been waiting to get past the first trimester before telling her family and friends. So now only my parents, Mike, and I knew about the whole situation. We talked for hours that night about the pregnancy, our failed relationship, and where we go from here. Sarah said she was going to start therapy to work on her trust issues and jealousy. She didn't ask to get back together or try to manipulate the situation, which I appreciated. I told her I needed some time and space to process everything. She understood and agreed that it was probably best if we didn't see each other for a while. As I left her apartment that night, I felt drained but somewhat relieved. The roller coaster of emotions over the past few weeks had been exhausting. Now, a week later, I'm still trying to make sense of everything that happened. I've been seeing a therapist to help me work through my feelings about the whole situation. It's been helpful to have a neutral party to talk to. I've also been doing a lot of thinking about my relationship with Sarah and my own behavior. While I still believe I was right to ask for proof of the pregnancy, I've realized there were times in our relationship where I could have communicated better or been more understanding of her insecurities. Sarah and I have texted a few times since that night. She's been going to therapy and says it's helping her understand her behavior better. She's apologized again for how she treated me during our relationship and for how she handled the pregnancy news. I'm not sure what the future holds for us. I don't think we'll ever get back together romantically. Too much has happened, and I think we're better off apart. But I'm open to the possibility of eventually developing a friendship once we've both had time to heal and grow. As for whether the pregnancy was real or not, I honestly don't know. So, here's the rundown. The medical documents looked legit, and the doctors at the hospital confirmed that Sarah had indeed miscarried. But given our rocky history, there's still a part of me that wonders. For my own peace of mind, though, I've decided to accept that it really happened and just move forward. This whole ordeal has taught me a lot about communication, trust, and how past actions can screw up relationships for a long time. I'm trying to take these lessons to heart, hoping to become a better person and partner in the future. Throughout all this, my parents and Mike have been absolute rocks. They've listened, given advice when I asked, and just been there for me. It's been a relief to have such a solid support system. Looking back at my original post, I can see how shocked and confused I was. I still think I was right to ask for proof, but I also get why Sarah might have freaked out initially. Fear and hormones can really mess with people's heads. To answer some questions from the comments on my original post, no, I haven't told any of our mutual friends about what happened. Sarah and I agreed it should stay private. Getting the gossip mill churning would only cause more unnecessary drama. As for work, things have thankfully calmed down. The awkwardness with Emily and my other coworkers has mostly blown over. I've been diving into my projects, which has been a great distraction from everything. I know this might not be the update some of you were expecting. Life is messy and complicated, and things rarely play out in neat, clear-cut ways. I'm still processing all of this and expect it'll take time to fully come to terms with everything. But I'm taking it one day at a time, focusing on my own growth and healing. Thanks again for all your advice and support. It really helped me navigate this tough situation. If anything major changes, I'll post another update. For now, I'm just trying to move forward, learn from this experience, and focus on building a better future for myself. Alright, now for the update I didn't really want to have to give. I thought things had somewhat settled after my last post about 2 months ago, but nope, life had other plans. I'm still pretty angry about everything that's happened. So, after Sarah's miscarriage, we barely talked. We'd text occasionally, mostly her filling me in on her therapy progress and me responding politely. I was still trying to wrap my head around everything and move on. Work was going well. I'd thrown myself into a new project, which was a great distraction. Things with my coworkers, including Emily, were pretty much back to normal. I was even starting to think about dating again, though I hadn't actually gone on any dates yet. Then, about 3 weeks ago, I got a call from a number I didn't recognize. When I picked up, a guy's voice asked if I was who I am. When I confirmed, he introduced himself as Robert and said we needed to talk about Sarah. My stomach dropped. Turns out Robert was Sarah's ex-boyfriend. They had dated for a few weeks during a period when Sarah and I were on a break that I remembered well because it followed a particularly nasty fight. Robert said he had recently found out from Sarah about the pregnancy and miscarriage, and he had some information that he thought I should know. We agreed to meet at a local bar the next evening. The next 24 hours were pure anxiety. My mind was racing with possibilities. Part of me didn't want to go, didn't want to know whatever it was that Robert had to tell me, but I also knew I couldn't ignore it. When I met Robert at the bar, he seemed like a regular guy about my age. He bought us both a beer and got straight to the point. "Sarah lied to you," he said. "The baby wasn't yours. It was mine." It felt like a punch to the gut. Robert went on to explain that he and Sarah had kept seeing each other on and off even after she and I had gotten back together. The last time they were together was about a week before Sarah and I broke up for good. He showed me text messages between him and Sarah that dated back months. In those messages, Sarah talked about how unhappy she was with me and how she was only staying because she was afraid of being alone. There were messages from the time she found out she was pregnant, and she was panicking about what to do. As I scrolled through the messages, feeling sicker by the minute, I came across one that made my blood boil. It was from Sarah to Robert, dated just a few days before she showed up at my door claiming to be pregnant with my child. "I have a plan," the message read. "I'm going to tell my name. The baby is his. He makes good money and he's always wanted kids. He'll take care of us." I couldn't believe what I was reading. Not only had she cheated on me, but she had deliberately tried to trap me into raising someone else's child. Robert felt guilty after the miscarriage and thought I deserved to know the truth. I thanked him for telling me, though a part of me wished I could just unknow it all. We finished our beers in silence, both lost in our thoughts. Before he left, Robert apologized for his part in the mess. I couldn't bring myself to hate him. I actually appreciated that he came forward with the truth. After Robert left, I sat at the bar for a long time trying to process everything. The bartender must have sensed something was wrong because he gave me the next beer on the house. I went home that night feeling completely numb. I couldn't sleep, couldn't eat. The next day, I called in sick to work. I needed time to think. I spent the day oscillating between anger and disbelief. How could Sarah have done this? How could she lie so easily and so thoroughly? And how could I have been so blind? I thought back to all the times Sarah had accused me of cheating, all the jealous outbursts, all the invasions of my privacy. It had all been projection. She was the one cheating all along. After a day of stewing in my own thoughts, I knew I had to confront Sarah. I couldn't just let it slide, so I texted her to ask if we could meet up. Surprisingly, she agreed, probably thinking it was just another routine catch-up. We met at the same coffee shop where she had first shown me the ultrasound pictures. The moment she saw my face, she knew something was up. Before she could say anything, I laid it all out. I spilled everything about my meeting with Robert, the text messages, and all that I had discovered. For a split second, it seemed like she was about to deny it, but then she just broke down crying, apologizing, and saying she never intended for things to get this far. I asked her how she could do this to me, lie about something so huge and try to trap me into raising a child that wasn't mine. She confessed she had been scared and desperate, thinking that if she could just get me to accept the baby as mine, everything would somehow work out. I told her what she did was unforgivable. Not only had she betrayed my trust in the worst possible way, but she had also been willing to drag an innocent child into her web of lies. Sarah begged for forgiveness, saying she would do anything to make it right, but I knew there was no making this right. The trust between us was shattered beyond repair. I told her I never wanted to see or hear from her again and suggested she continue with therapy because she obviously needed help. Then, I got up and walked out, ignoring her pleas for me to stay and talk. The next few days were a total blur. I told my parents and Mike what had happened. They were furious on my behalf, especially my mom, who wanted to call Sarah and give her a piece of her mind. I asked her not to. I just wanted to move on from the whole mess. I also decided to tell a few of our mutual friends because I knew Sarah might try to spin the story. I didn't go into all the details, just told them that Sarah had cheated on me and lied about the pregnancy. Most of them were shocked and supportive, but one friend admitted she had suspected Sarah might be cheating. She had seen Sarah with another guy a few times but wasn't sure if it was anything serious and apologized for not telling me sooner. I was hurt that she hadn't said anything, but I understood why she didn't want to get involved. Back at work, I finally told Emily the whole story. She was incredibly understanding and supportive and even admitted that she had always thought Sarah seemed off, but didn't want to say anything negative about my girlfriend. We've actually grown closer through all of this, and I'm starting to see her in a new light. Who knows? Maybe something might develop between us in the future. As for Sarah, I haven't heard from her since our confrontation at the coffee shop. I've blocked her number and unfollowed her on all social media platforms. A mutual friend told me she's moved back in with her parents and is continuing with therapy. Part of me hopes she gets the help she needs, but mostly, I just want her completely out of my life. Looking back on our relationship, I can now see how toxic it was. Sarah's jealousy and insecurity weren't just annoying quirks. They were signs of deeper issues. I realize now that I should have ended things way sooner. I've been doing a lot of soul-searching about why I stayed with Sarah for so long and put up with her behavior. I think part of it was that I was afraid of being alone. Part of it was that I thought I could fix her. And part of it, I'm ashamed to admit, was that I enjoyed feeling needed, even if it was in an unhealthy way. One of the hardest things to come to terms with has been the loss of the future I thought I might have had. Even though I was unsure about the pregnancy, a part of me had started to imagine what it would be like to be a father. Having that ripped away and discovering it was all a lie was tough, but I'm also relieved. Relieved that I found out the truth before it was too late, and relieved that I'm not tied to Sarah for the rest of my life. I've been focusing on myself these past few weeks. I've gotten back into running, something I used to love, but had given up on during my relationship with Sarah. I'm reading more, spending time with friends, and even thinking about taking a solo trip somewhere. Work has been a great distraction, and I've thrown myself into a new project. My boss has noticed and hinted that a promotion might be in my future if I keep it up. It's nice to have something positive to focus on. As for dating, I'm not ready to jump back into anything serious yet. I need time to heal and to learn to trust again. But I'm not closing myself off to the possibility of meeting someone new when the time is right. I've learned a lot from this whole experience, about myself, relationships, and trust. I've learned that it's important to trust your instincts. If something feels off, it probably is. To those who followed my story from the beginning, thank you for your support and advice. You helped me see things more clearly when I was too close to the situation to do so myself. If there's one thing I want people to take away from my story, it's this. Trust is precious, and once it's broken, it's incredibly hard to rebuild. Don't stay in a relationship where you're constantly doubting your partner or yourself, and if someone shows you who they really are, believe them the first time. As for me, I'm taking things one day at a time. Some days are harder than others, but overall, I'm doing okay. I'm looking forward to the future, whatever it may hold, and I know that whatever challenges come my way, I'm strong enough to face them. This will be my final update on this situation. It's time for me to close this chapter of my life and move on. Thank you all again for your support throughout this crazy journey. Here's to new beginnings and better days ahead. Update 3. It's been about 10 months since my last update, and I honestly didn't think I'd be writing another one. I thought the Sarah chapter of my life was closed for good, but life has a way of throwing curveballs when you least expect them. After everything that happened with Sarah and the revelation about her, after the whole cheating fiasco, I decided it was time to move on with my life. I threw myself into work, kept up with my therapy sessions, and started to rebuild my social life. All things considered, things were going pretty well. The promotion my boss had hinted at finally came through, and I'm now leading my own team on this major project. It's been super challenging, but also really rewarding. So Emily and I have been teaming up a lot at work, and honestly, there's been some serious flirting going on. We haven't taken it further yet because I'm still pretty cautious about getting involved with a coworker, especially after everything that happened with Sarah. But yeah, the chemistry is definitely there. Then, about a month ago, my life took another unexpected turn. I was at the grocery store one evening just grabbing some stuff for dinner, and I literally bumped into Robert. Yes, that Robert, Sarah's ex-boyfriend, the one who dropped the bomb about the baby not being mine. We both just stood there, totally shocked by the coincidence. Then Robert asked if I wanted to grab a coffee and chat. At first, I wasn't sure if I wanted to dig up the past, but my curiosity won out, so I agreed. Over coffee, Robert caught me up on Sarah. Apparently, she'd had a complete breakdown after our confrontation. She quit her job, moved back in with her parents, and started intensive therapy. Robert had been in touch with her parents and felt somewhat responsible for her situation. Then he told me that Sarah found out she was pregnant again, and this time the baby was definitely his. They weren't back together, but he planned to co-parent with her. I felt this mix of anger and relief. Angry because why should Sarah get to have a baby after everything, but also relieved that I wasn't the one stuck with her for life. Robert seemed genuinely excited about becoming a dad, even though he was nervous about co-parenting with Sarah given their past. He mentioned that Sarah had made significant progress in therapy, dealing with her trust issues and manipulative behavior, but he was still cautious. Before we parted ways, Robert dropped another bombshell. Sarah wanted to apologize to me in person. I told him I'd think about it, but made no promises. For the next few days, I couldn't stop thinking about what Robert had told me. I talked it over with my therapist, trying to sort out my feelings. On one hand, I felt no obligation to see Sarah or hear her out. What she did was unforgivable. On the other hand, part of me wondered if hearing her apology might provide some closure. After a lot of thinking, I decided to meet with her. I figured it was better to face this head-on rather than always wondering what if. I asked Robert to set up the meeting, making it clear it was a one-time thing. We met at a park on a Saturday afternoon, a public place for neutrality and to avoid any potential drama. When I saw Sarah, she looked different, like she'd lost some of her confidence. She sat down next to me, keeping a respectful distance, and after a moment of silence, she began. "I know nothing I say can undo what I did," she started, "but I want you to know how deeply sorry I am for everything, for the cheating, the lies, for trying to trap you with a baby that wasn't yours. It was inexcusable, and I'll regret it for the rest of my life." She explained that she'd been diagnosed with borderline personality disorder, which helped explain but not excuse some of her past behavior. She talked about the intensive therapy she'd been going through, learning to manage her emotions and insecurities in healthier ways. "I'm not telling you this to ask for forgiveness," she said. "I know I don't deserve that. I just want you to know that I understand how much I hurt you, and I'm doing everything I can to make sure I never treat anyone that way again." When she finished, I took a moment to gather my thoughts. I told her that while I appreciated her apology, I couldn't forgive her, at least not yet. The wounds were still too fresh, and the betrayal too deep. But I did tell her that I hoped she would continue with her therapy and work on becoming a better person, especially now that she was going to be a mother. Sarah nodded and thanked me for listening and for being willing to meet with her. As she stood to leave, she paused and said, "I truly am happy for you, you know. Robert told me about your promotion and about Emily. I hope it works out for you. You deserve to be happy." With that, she walked away. I sat on that bench for a long time after she left, processing everything that had just happened. It wasn't the dramatic confrontation I'd imagined. Instead, it felt like the quiet closing of a door, the final end of a chapter in my life. In the weeks since that meeting, I've done a lot of thinking about Sarah, about our relationship, about everything that happened. I've realized that while I can't forgive her actions, I can let go of the anger I've been holding on to. It's not about excusing what she did, but about freeing myself from the negative emotions that have been weighing me down. As for my personal life, things have been looking up. Remember how I mentioned there was some flirtation going on with Emily? Well, about a week after my meeting with Sarah, Emily and I finally addressed the elephant in the room. We decided to give dating a shot, with the agreement that we'd keep things professional at work and be open with our boss about the situation to avoid any potential conflicts of interest. It's early days yet, but being with Emily feels different from any relationship I've had before. There's a level of trust and open communication that I never had with Sarah. We're taking things slow, both of us aware of the potential complications of dating a coworker, but so far it's been really good. My friends and family have been super supportive of this new development. Mike even joked that he knew Emily and I would end up together from the moment he heard about the crazy ex-girlfriend incident at the office. My parents are just happy to see me happy again. Work continues to go well. The project I'm leading is on track, and my team has really come together. It's satisfying to see something I've worked so hard on starting to bear fruit. All right, folks, here's where I stand with Sarah and Robert. I've decided to keep my distance. Robert sends me updates every now and then, which I do appreciate, but I've let him know that I don't want to be part of their lives anymore. I genuinely wish them well, especially for the sake of their kid, but that chapter of my life is closed for good. To everyone who's been with me from the get-go, thank you so much for your support and advice. Your kind words helped me more than you could imagine, especially during those dark days right after I found out the truth about Sarah's deception. As for what comes next, I'm not entirely sure. My relationship with Emily is still pretty new, so who knows where it will go. Professionally, things are looking up, but I'm well aware there'll be challenges. Life's unpredictability can be a wild ride, but for the first time in a long time, I'm genuinely excited about what's ahead. I feel like I've got a fresh start and a chance to put all the lessons I've learned to good use. This marks my final update on this whole situation. It's time to move on and look forward. Thank you all again for sticking with me through this crazy journey. Here's to new beginnings, hard-earned wisdom, and all the endless possibilities ahead.